Hey everyone, welcome to the Fan Battle Sports Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host tonight, Matthew Briggs. It was with me. I got my little brother, but big brother from the Texans Fan Battle. I got Mr. VT. What's going on, buddy?
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
Guys, we have Josh Senior with us, but this weather's changed as has taken a victim. He has a cold, so he would not be with us. So our vibes to Josh. Hope you get the feeling better, so we can clown on you about this thing we're about to talk about here shortly. But before that, VT, you weren't here last week when we kicked off the podcast. So why don't you tell everybody? It was a pretty cool story that about your fantasy origin, because that's what made you a football fan, right? So
Yeah.
tell us like your resume and what makes you able to have a fantasy football podcast.
Okay. So it all starts basically back in about 2009. So my best friend who had always tried to get me to fantasy football really was pushing me. And so finally one year I did it. That year that I did it, I took Matt Schaub, who was on the Texans, and he had a breakout year. He had around 1,400 yards, and I casually watch football, but I wasn't watching every single play and looking at all 22s the way that I do now and stuff. And so basically, when I took him, I watched the Texans a lot, and that's how I became a Texans fan. I wasn't born in Houston. I actually live in Florida now. I grew up in Connecticut, but it made me a Houston Texans fan. He won me my championship. Since then, I played in a lot of leagues. Typically, my average year is a 6-year league. 6 league year. So I played in quite a bit of leagues. I played in IDP, and so I love the math part of it. I love the statistics part of it. One of the things that always made me, I think I had an edge on people, is because I was a waiver wire machine. Obviously some people are like, you want to draft great and that's it. But in most of my leagues, because I was in with a friend of mine, there was 2 people that had the most waiver wire pickups typically every year. And it was me and another guy. And I used to have anywhere between 35 and 40 pickups because I believed in always acquiring talent, acquire the talent when you can. Some people crave on to that position, that waiver wire position. But to me, it's just get the dude in case you need him.
Yeah, I feel you. That's I'm a draft guy, but I do pay attention to the waiver wire. Like if there's a guy that I must have, and I always take the gamble of the unknown. That's my favorite on the waiver wire. Like a guy has a decent game. Like let's take a gamble on this guy and let's see if he pans out. So
Right.
well, before we move on to here's another one that we had while you weren't here. What is your list? Me the best to the worst apps that you use, BT.
Okay, so this is a direct contrast to Josh Senior because he said he hated Yahoo, and I love Yahoo.
Right? That's what I'm saying. Like, how can you hate Yahoo? Like, bro. But, yeah.
I mean, I like it not just from a fantasy perspective, but from a commissioner perspective, because the amount of changes that you can do. I mean, in the beginning, it may take a little bit to just figure everything out how you want to set it up. But after you do that your first year, you know exactly what you need to do. The amount of stuff that you need to. But during that COVID year, that was one of the when you had to make special things because they moved games around and stuff. Right. That was one of the cool things about Yahoo was how you're able to make special arrangements for those crazy things. So I love Yahoo. I actually started on Yahoo because and one of the things I think is great about if you're just starting with fantasy football is that you can actually use Yahoo for everything because not only can you do your obviously your changes and your lineups and stuff, but they've got quick 30-second videos on every single player you can read up. They got the injury reports. You get your notifications on your phone. I mean, it's literally an all-in-one. And I understand the brand name Yahoo, it's old, whatever. It works for fantasy.
See, our boy Crenshaw, like, bro, how can you like ESPN? That is the most trash
I
app.
hate ESPN. I hate
Dude,
the ESPN fantasy app and the NFL fantasy app. Both of those apps are utter crap.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I mean, it's easy. It's the dummy apps of fantasy, right? The NFL, but ESPN, man, you have to like ask what street you lived on when you were a kid just to submit a lineup. Like you're not a bot. You got to pick 8 pitchers that have buses on there. I just want to push the button and save my lineup. That's all I want to do. But ESPN is I hate it. But mine is either Yahoo is like it's close. It's Yahoo or Sleeper, but Sleeper is slowly taking me over, and it's Yahoo, NFL, and then that god's awful ESPN. I just can't take it. But NFL's trash as well. I don't like how you can pick up players. That's too much.
What do you mean, like that you can pick up players? I mean, I love the waiver wire. What I don't like about the NFL app is, first of all, I hate the whole click one button so we'll automate everything for you. F that. I mean,
Right.
that's horrible. Get that out of there. But the other thing is, I feel like they want to take all that control away from you. The way that you had all that control in Yahoo and stuff. In Yahoo, it's just so easy. Like waiver wires, for example. When you want to pick up somebody and you don't know whether someone who's ahead of you is going to pick them up, you can basically put a backup position, right? Because when they go in there, whatever it is, Tuesdays at 3 a.m., and someone else takes that position, you can take your backup waiver wire guy. And if they got your main guy, well, the second one is just saying, boom, they cut it out. Like you can't do that in the other apps. You can only have one. And I like Yahoo.
Oh, he's talking about like an IDP league where you pick players like a linebacker. That's just the league you're in. It all depends on your commissioner,
Right.
Kershaw. I personally like IDP, but I can see why people don't like it because it is time.
It's difficult.
consuming. Well, yeah, it's time consuming too. Like you got to pick a lot of time to pick out your roster, especially when it comes to cornerbacks and all that. So
my biggest thing with IDP is that you could have obviously an excellent offense, but then you have one pick six, and that's it. Because depending on how your commissioners score in pick sixes, which most commissioners are scoring them high because of how infrequent it happens, your week is done.
Right.
So that's a difficult thing.
Yeah, too bad you didn't play IDP when what was it 2012 when Matt Schaub was quarterback. All you had to do was pick a cornerback from the team he was playing. That's an automatic pick six right there. So, well,
the strays from Matt Schaub.
Man, hey, still the goat, still the goat. Well, man, let's move on to NFL news that affects fantasy football. Of course, it's been a running back year. All the drama circling the running backs. Let's start there in New York. Saquon Barkley, he showed up to practice, but has not played one preseason game. He signed for what 1 year, $11 million, right, or $9 million?
No, it was $11 million. It was 900,000 more than the tag.
Right. Okay. Right. I do. It was something like that. You know what I mean? Vice versa. So let me get your thoughts on it, BT. Do you think he plays? Do you stay away from him, or do you take the gamble and pick him up?
I don't even think it's a gamble. I think that he's the second RB on my board after CMC.
Okay.
I think that the news coming out that he hasn't missed there's been 19 practices and he hasn't missed a single one. And I think what that tells you is he's not requesting days off. They're even giving Tank Dell days off at this point, right? So when you're seeing Saquon Barkley, who has had an injury history in the past, and he's saying, I'm playing every day, I'm going to make this team better. I think it's time that you give him the respect in fantasy. You give him the respect that he deserves, or he'll take it by force. I think that if you're thinking that Saquon Barkley is just going to be injured or he's not going to be a big part of the offense, you're sadly mistaken. I still think he's going to be huge. I don't think Darren Waller is going to be as effective as some people think. I still think that Saquon Barkley is going to take a lot of targets in the receiving game. And even if he doesn't lead the league, he's going to be probably top 5 again. So I think it's a done deal to take Saquon, in my opinion, at 2.
Okay. I mean, I got Austin Eckler, number 2 on my list because he's very similar to CMC, of course. I got CMC number 1. Well, let's jump up to Austin Eckler. He's still unpleased with his deal. He like another running back we're going to talk to. He sought out a trade. Nobody bit. So again, BT, I talk to you. Do you take the gamble of Austin Eckler, or do you see where he falls?
I mean, I think it really depends who's aboard right now, right? So, like, I have, in terms of running backs, I'll just give you my running backs. It's CMC first, Saquon Barkley second, Bijan Robinson third, fourth is where I'll take up Eckler, and then right after him, I would take Chubb. And so if he's in my top 5, right? So I would take him, but I don't think there's a risk of like, oh, you're going to risk it because he could sit out something. There's none of that, and he's not, and he's still going to give it his all because he needs a contract for next year, and he's still going to show up what he can do. So he's my 4th best running back.
Okay, all right. Well, let's stay in the division. Let's move on to Josh Jacobs, another guy who's been very unpleased, and I don't think. Look, preseason, I love watching it, but it's hard to catch all the NFL games. You know what I mean? Josh Jacobs, has he played in any games yet?
No, or at least not that I've seen. Honestly, I like you. I've only caught some of the games. Like I was watching, the Miami game today, and so I can only watch so many games at one time.
Right.
So for my knowledge, he hasn't played. But here's what I'll say about Josh Jacobs. Right, he got a new contract. His contract incentives. This is what it's interesting. Right. So first of all, he had just from last year, he had 12 TDs, 1,600 over 1,600 yards. He had 340 carries, which is very similar to a Derrick Henry, right? Mm-hmm. And an additional 400 yards through the air. Now, one of the things is that he avoided 100 tackles last year. And the thing is, he has incentives, right? He has another additional $200,000 in incentives. So he's going to try to obviously hit that. I should have said this about Saquon Barkley, though, because we found out some information when the news broke about the 19 games that he missed. Let me go back and just see. All right, find this. I want to say this. His incentives are Saquon Barkley now. I know I'm switching, but I forgot to mention this. His incentives are tied to Giants making the playoffs, and that he needs to record 1,350 yards rushing, 65 catches, and 11 touchdowns. And the thing is, he had 1,300 yards last year. He had 10 TDs last year, and he had 350 yards through the air. So he was very close to making that last year. So the fact is, that he's going to try and hit that to get it this year. That's another reason why you want Saquon Barkley, because his incentives are pretty much easily there if he just meets what he did last year just by a hair more. So I think that you should get decent production out of him, similar to last year, if it's not more, but around the same. Now, going back to Josh Jacobs, he has incentives. We don't know what those incentives are, but we know that he was happy to get that deal. And obviously, any running back is going to try to maximize their contract by getting and meeting those incentives. So I'm very high on Josh Jacobs as well. The only reason why I haven't listed him in my top 5 is because of the coaching. And I think that it's so he's underrated, frankly, for me, right, in terms of where I'm going to take him. But the coaching, I can't trust the coaching. And that's part of the issue. That I'll contradict myself later on a moment when we go into it. But Josh Jacobs is weird because they could try to pass a bit more. And that's what I think they will do this year.
Well, that and it doesn't seem that they'll be playing ahead a lot. So his carries will be taking a hit. So I get.
And I'll tell you who's going to take some of those carries just in terms of the receiving game when we get to that portion.
All right. Well, save the best drama for the last drama. All for your mama. Let's go to the AFC South, our division rivals, the Indianapolis Colts, Mr. Jonathan Taylor. Man, this seems like a weird episode of Dragon Ball Z. On this episode of Jonathan Taylor, he decides to go seek a trade. So, man, tell me, first he was hurt. Now he's not. He's hurt. Like a whole bunch of he said, she said, and he's holding out. Jim Irsay says, go ahead. Who cares? Well, I want to trade. Go ahead. So now there's teams that has offers. He turned down the Miami deal. They didn't offer a first round pick, right? That they were looking for. Do you
That's what the expectation is that they did
right?
not.
Right. So how does this affect his draft stock? And where are you taking Jonathan Taylor if he comes to you at the draft?
I'm not taking him in the first round at all. Right, like wherever you are, I'm not taking him. It's too big of a risk.
Mhm.
I think that there's too many pieces unknown that he may not even play this year. Right.
Right.
Then you don't even know where he was going to end up. Now, if I was a betting man, and obviously it's a fantasy podcast, so I am, um, I would say he probably ends up in Miami. And the thing is, Miami already has a ton of running backs. So they have two good running backs already. They got Ahmed, right? And he's a beast. He's explosive. I was just watching him today, and he was running all over the Jags. I mean, like the thing about it is that he is going to be limited if he goes to Miami, just in terms of what he was at his best. The other thing is, and because we don't know where he's going to end up, we have no idea what to predict for his actual stats. At this point, it's a shot in the dark. If you want to risk it because you just want to play with money, at this point, take him. But the only reason why you do that is because you're like, I know what he did in the past, but you can't say at all what he's going to do in the future because you have no idea if he's even going to play a down. It's too big of a risk for me. I'm going to avoid him unless I get him later, like in the fourth round or so, possibly third. But I would avoid him until a later round unless you want, and then you just take a shot in the dark.
Okay. Well, BT, I think that is all the NFL news that affects the fantasy for the most part, right? Am I missing
Um,
anything?
no, I think you got. I think you got everything. All right, tell me. Do you want to talk about Bryce Young? Does that affect fantasy? It's not necessarily news, but he did.
We were going to do a rookie segment, so
Okay.
we'll save that to the rookie segment.
Okay.
So, but everything else,
No.
okay.
Well, I guess Trey Lance, does that affect fantasy? I mean,
Oh, it does. I mean, it's for somewhat. So yeah, Trey Lance, the quarterback, the 49ers traded three first rounds or two
so they gave up 3 first
first
rounds to
rounds,
get
right? Yeah, yeah, and then traded him for a fourth round pick to the Dallas Cowboys.
him.
A lot of people, even your boy Leo, says that he's going to be taking over Dak Prescott's spot there in Dallas. I don't see it happening, but does this hurt? It has to hurt his stock, right? In fantasy, like nobody's going to take him, correct?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't think anyone should take Trey Lance, but I will say it's interesting that Dallas paid a fourth for him because apparently, according to the news, that there were plenty of offers for fifth or sixth, and Dallas was the
Wow,
one
really?
that spent
Okay.
a fourth. Yeah, so they overpaid for him to get him. Why? That's the question. Why? When all the others were fifth round, why did they give up a fourth? Why did they want him that bad? So that I think is a question why some people are saying, he could take over Dak's job. Now the thing is, you also realize that when Dak was down, Cooper Rush handled it. So then you're like, well, why did they want to back up so bad? Because you
Yeah,
can't
one
win
in Cooper
games
Rush,
without Dak,
right.
right? So that's the confusing part because it doesn't make sense. They obviously have the high-powered, high-paid quarterback. So you're only going to play Trey Lance if Dak goes down, and you already have a good backup for when Dak goes down. So to me, it makes absolutely no sense. I don't understand this one single bit, and especially they didn't just give a fifth and say a fifth and a sixth or a fifth, sixth. They gave up a fourth round pick, which is a pretty decent pick. Damian Pierce for us, we got in the fourth round, right? So it's a valuable pick. How this affect fantasy? Well, I think the way that this affects fantasy is that first of all, there's no QB controversy in San Francisco. You know for
Right.
a fact that it's Brock Purdy, that Trey Lance isn't going to win anything out of there. Obviously, he's gone. I would say that that's the fantasy implications. Is that
And Brock Purdy is, I mean, nobody's going to spend their first quarterback pick on Brock Purdy. He's either going to be your bench, your backup QB, or you're going to pick him off the waiver wires. He's not going to be a guy that is a must have as of now. I mean, Who knows? He can catch fire like he did last year. And I know in a couple of fantasy leagues, I picked him up off the waiver wire just because he was one of the hottest quarterbacks in the league last year. But yeah, I don't see him being the guy everybody goes after, unless he's your boy Brian Coral. I know he's a big Brock Purdy fan, but yeah, I don't see it happen. But you're right; it ends all conversation of the quarterback controversy.
Right, and I think that's really what it does from a fantasy perspective. It's not as big of an implication because people were not going to pick Purdy right away. But I think it is still just an interesting topic that you got to bring it up. It's impossible not to.
Right. Well, let's move on. A segment that we did last week. I think we're trying to keep it a little bit, but let's do this top 5. You brought up Bryce Young, so let's do top 5 rookies. Of course, we really can't do top 5, so let's do top 3. Top 3 rookie quarterbacks. VT, I'll let you kick it off first.
Oh, just quarterbacks.
Well, we'll do every position.
Okay, so I'll give you my impact rookies. My first one, and I think this will be on everybody's list, is Bijan Robinson. almost 1,600 yards on the ground, 6.1 yards per carry. I know some people are like, well, in preseason he didn't too much, but it's freaking preseason. He's only had 4 carries in preseason, but he went to Atlanta. Atlanta runs the ball more than anyone, more than Chicago. So he went basically the best place that he can go. Right. And I think
that Arthur Smith coaching scheme fits perfect for him.
It is. I mean, he's going to catch a lot in the backfield. They're going to line him up as slot. He's going to take carries away from Drake London and Kyle Pitts. I mean, he's going to be a machine. So, now that Bijan Robinson is there, your Kyle Pitts draft stock is low. Even Drake London's low. Basically, every other offensive weapon is low because of Bijan Robinson. Now that's on the Falcons. So I think he's a huge impact player. He's in my top 5. Number 2 would be Jahmyr Gibbs. He's another one that has a very high yards per carry. Exact same, actually, 6.1 yards per carry. He had 926 yards last year. And I know, again, in preseason, he's only had 6 carries, 3.2 yards per carry. 6 carries, only 3.2 yards per carry. But again, it's preseason. The dude is fast as hell. He had another 400 yards through the air. So he's another one that's going to be great for PPR because you can run and catch. Right. So some people may be worried that he tweaked his ankle in camp, but he played in the preseason, so he's obviously healthy by now. So I don't think that should be a concern. And since you said 3, I'll give my last one, and that's Zay Flowers. So I gave you 2 running backs, and I'll give you a receiver.
You know what? Go ahead. Go top 5. Go ahead. I'll give you top 3 in each position, but since you did it in the whole, go ahead. Top 5.
Okay. Zay Flowers. So Zay Flowers, he can cut on a dime. He's very, very fast. You've seen him on Twitter at this point. If you're following all the teams, you're seeing all the routes that he's running. I think he steals a lot of stuff away from OBJ, and we'll talk about him later on. But he had 1,077 yards last year. But here's the real big number for fantasy: 12 touchdowns. Okay, so he's very efficient. So yeah, he didn't have 1,600 yards, but he had 12 touchdowns. And I do think that this is a guy that's going to have so much yak ability that he's going to find the end zone a lot. And so, even if he doesn't have 80 catches or whatever, you're going to get a ton of points because he's going to hit a lot of touchdowns.
Right.
In preseason, he's had 2 catches for a little less than 40 yards, but he's already had a touchdown too. So he's already showing that he's going to be able to produce there.
And a new offensive scheme that to me seems a little bit past friendly than the Greg Romans in the past. So
absolutely. And I think he is going to be a real tough one if we play them week 1. And I think he's going to be really, really tough, whether it's Stingley or not, trying to keep up with them because he is just incredibly talented.
His separation is by far the best in the draft. It is unreal.
Right.
Our shout out to our boy Chris Royal. He's a diehard Zay Flowers fan. So yeah, he has to be up there, right? So
yeah.
So number 4, who we got?
So this is the one that's going to surprise you because I told you that I don't like to coach, but Michael Mayer. All right, and I'll tell you why. It's because he has had 800 yards his past 2 years. And again, here's a kicker. Last year, he had 9 touchdowns. So I think this guy, even if he doesn't have the yards, this is another one where it's going to be touchdown dependent. But I do think that he's going to get a lot of those catches in the end zone. He's a big dude. He's a big body tight end, right? So it's going to be very, very hard to defend him. So I think that's one of the things. Plus, I don't really trust a lot of the other receivers here. Like, are you going to trust Renfro at this point too? Right? Obviously, you got Devontae Adams there, and he's going to be the biggest receiver. But you also going to have Michael Mayer be in the same situation as Dalton Schultz, which is be that dump off guy. And I believe that that's what's going to happen a lot with Jimmy G. He's going to dump off a lot. So I do think,
or Aiden O'Connell when he comes in week 4 when Jimmy G gets hurt, you know.
Yeah. I mean, if Jimmy G gets hurt, I mean, yes, I do think that happens. I mean, I will say this though, that if there's any tight end rookie, I really think that Michael Mayer is probably one of the best. And I don't say that a lot about tight ends when they're rookies, because tight ends typically take a few years to actually get in there. But I think that they will be very dependent because of who they lost and who they have at quarterback. And then last, Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt, now he does not have a defined route tree, meaning he has basically, you could call him a one-trick pony. All right. But here's the thing. Last year, 15 touchdowns. All right. So he had nearly 1,300 yards, but 15 touchdowns. This is another guy. We saw it just today. Right? He already has a TD in preseason, and he would have had another one today if Sauce Gardner did not grab and it was not called. But so he would have had another TD today. This guy's going to get you a lot of those long bombs, and he's going to find the end zone because he does one thing and one thing very well, and those fade routes, right? Mm-hmm. That's what he does. And so if that is what you're going to see him for. Now, you're not going to see him get, probably the majority of the catches or anything like that. But when he is involved in the game, in the receiving game, he's going to come up for big yards most of the time.
Agreed. Oh man, that's a tough top 5 there. Be putting the pressure on me, man. I mean, of course, my top 5. I gotta go with you. Number 1 has to be Bijan Robinson. Just like you said. Are you there, B? Well, it looks like we have some technical difficulties. Well, I'll just go on and say my top 5. There. Are you back?
Yeah, I didn't. I was trying to figure out what was going on. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. But yeah, like I said, my top 5. Of course, you gotta go Bijan Robinson, right? Dude was a workhorse in Texas, and you're right. Preseason not showing his skills, but the dude's gonna get the carries. He's gonna get the catches. Riddler is not a veteran quarterback, so he's going to have to do a lot of checkdowns. And I think Bijan Robinson is going to be a big factor to that. So, yeah, of course, Bijan Robinson, number 1. Number 2, I'm going to have to go with Gibbs again, like you. That Lions offense, they got rid of Swift and Williams, but, man, it's so powerful, right? Like a lot of people have them in the top 5 offense this year, predicting.
Yes.
So they're going to play the pass a lot. So I think that's going to give Gibbs a wide open. And plus, I mean, he was just so great in college. So it's hard not to give him the ride for number 2. Look, my philosophy in fantasy is you win by the run. If you have a great run, great running back core, you're going to be close to winning. Like, so that's where I die on the hill is running backs, but I know it's evolving. So right now it's still the running backs. But number 3, I think this is where we kind of differ. I got Jordan Addison.
Okay.
Yeah. Him up there in Minnesota. Justin Jefferson.
Minnesota?
Justin Look, Jay Jettis, bro, like the best receiver in the league.
Right.
You got to double team, you got to triple team him.
Yeah.
So he's going. I mean, he's going to be wide open. So I think that he's going to be the product of, hey, this guy's open. Let's give him the ball. Boom, boom, boom. So, he was having a great year in USC. He just got injured. So I think if he stays healthy, that's his big, like we always say, best ability is availability. So
Right.
you got to stay healthy. But yeah, I got him number 3. Number 4, I got to go Zay Flowers. Just like you said, the red zone is where he's going to eat, especially with a lot of those drag routes and quick slants that Lamar Jackson likes to throw. So I think they're going to use that. And you can probably see him a lot of options. You know what I mean? Jet option. So there's a lot of ways that he can be utilized to get you points in fantasy. So I think that's going to be a key. So number 4. And I know he had a horrible game the other day, but again, it's preseason. But number 5, I think it's going to be Anthony Richardson. If he keeps developing with Shane Steichen, like that duo scares me right there.
Yeah.
Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson scares the shit out of me. But also, he's like your Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson type. Like he can run and throw. So that's where he's going to get you the double points, be a mobile quarterback. I think while they're developing, they're going to run a lot of options, read options, and a lot of RPOs. So I think that's where he's going to get you most points. Hopefully by week 8, he gets it more under suit and knows what to do, so he can get you more points in the passing. But yeah, I gotta go Anthony Richardson top 5. I hope put my faith in the Colts don't bite me in the ass, but I have a feeling he's going to be. But, yeah.
I mean, listen, I don't think that you're wrong for feeling that way. I do think that my predictions have changed completely with this Jonathan Taylor crap. So if Jonathan Taylor was on the Colts, he would have probably made my top 5 list. But the fact is that Jonathan Taylor is not there, and I know the way that Shane wants to run it, because you've seen what he did with Jalen Hurts, and he focused on that run game, and he purposely made that run game strong, and then focused on play action. And without JT, it's kind of like, how is he going to do that? Now, obviously, a dual threat like Richardson is going to get you points on the ground and through the air, plus those rushing TDs, right? So makes perfect sense. The thing that I don't know is Richardson going to be able to get out and not just have a ton of sacks? And then obviously, how many interceptions is he going to throw? Like, could he throw 20 interceptions this year? And obviously negative points. So when I say negative points, I'm not meaning overall. I'm just meaning like it's going to take away from your score, right? So I think there's questions there, and I don't disagree why you would want to take the risk with them. But I would have those concerns.
Yeah, I agree with you. If JT was there, he'd probably be my top 3. But man, like Shane Steichen and Andy Reid, Pete Carroll, they're so great at scheming. BT, mean you can go out there, be running backs and be productive. like they are just great at making no-name running backs relevant.
Yeah.
So yes, is it a JT that's going to hurt him a little bit? Yes, but I think Shane Steichen can take like a Deion Jackson, or if Moss comes back, I don't think he'd be ready for week 1. But if Moss comes back, he can take them and at least get them serviceable for Anthony Richardson. And of course, there's still Lamar Hunt, Leonard Fournette. I mean, there's still guys out there. I mean, I don't know why they don't have jobs yet, but who knows?
Honestly, I don't know why they didn't go after Dalvin Cook.
Same. I mean, I don't.
Because if they went after Dalvin Cook, you probably wouldn't have. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to produce the same as JT, but Shane's scheme and what he wants to do would probably not change in one iota. Right? It would have been the same shit.
Well, I mean, same thing for Kareem Hunt. Like he's pissed it too. I know he went there for a visit and walked away without a contract, but I don't know, man. To me, just to help the development of Anthony Richardson,
Yeah.
I think you bring him in. So, but who knows, man? Well, it's going to be an interesting season for sure. Well, let's move on to the bets. Instead of saying top 5, the best, let's do it. I mean, we're old, B. We look young. We are young at heart, but fuck, we're old. So let's do aging veterans. Who do you think are your top 5 veterans to take a step back?
OBJ. I mentioned Zay Flowers as an impact player, and I think he hurts OBJ's production. OBJ has not been able to stay healthy. You're going to have issues there because you have Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay. What's going on, Josh? How's it going? Hope you feel a little bit better.
I'll be coughing a couple of times on the episode, but I just want to show my face and do what I'm supposed to.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, so OBJ, that's my first guy that I think that you're going to have a problem with if you draft him. Like I said, Zay Flowers, I think, is going to take a lot of those touches. So OBJ, can he stay healthy? Probably not. And secondly, he's going to have to compete with 4 other dudes, and I don't think he's going to do well.
Pause, but yeah, go ahead.
Number 2. Now, I'm sure this is going to be arguable, but I'm saying Hopkins, and I'm saying that wearing a Hopkins jersey right now. Last year, he only played in 19 out of 34 games, right? So, yes, some of those were because of PED, but he has hurt. He's hurt his knee. He's hurt his hamstring. Yes, he had a PED suspension. I don't know if that's some of it. But the Titans don't have a good O-line. I've been complaining about that for a bit, right? Dillard is not a great substitute, not a great left tackle. He is not even average. He's not even worth as a backup, frankly. So you're not going to have anyone to protect Tannehill's blind side. Tannehill doesn't stay healthy either. So typical, right? So now you have a horrible line that can protect Tannehill, and then you need to have a bit of time, right, to be able to get Hopkins that ball. So the plan would be to run with Derrick Henry, use play action. But the whole thing is you need Tannehill to do that because Malik Willis is not going to be able to do that. Levis is hurt already, and who knows if he's going to be able to do that. So it doesn't look great for Hopkins. I initially thought that he could get 700 yards and about 5 touchdowns, and I'm actually thinking that's actually less now at this point.
Okay.
So I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he got 550, a little less than 600 yards, and only 4 touchdowns. I am not seeing a great season for him, even if he played 12, 13 games. So I'm not high on Hopkins there. I'm going to give you 3 and 4 at the same time, though. Ezekiel Elliott and Rondé Stevenson. Why? Well, first of all, don't ever draft Patriots running backs. That's the first thing. So now that you have that problem, now Zeke is coming there, taking touches away from Rondé Stevenson. What is Zeke going to do? He's going to be in the passing game, right? And he's going to be at the goal line. You're taking that away from Rondé Stevenson, but Rondé Stevenson is what's going to get you those explosive yards and those hard yards. So they're going to be splitting them. So it makes no sense, in my opinion, to draft either one of them unless they're backups. Right? You're talking, your RB3s really at that point. So I wouldn't draft Ezekiel Elliott or Rondé Stevenson. And last one, I think you'll agree with me on this one, Matt. Deshaun Watson.
Ooh.
Deshaun Watson has been getting.
What's the question?
What vets should you not draft that are going to?
Who do you think going to have a down year in fantasy football? Top 5.
Okay.
So it's been OBJ, Hopkins, Ezekiel Elliott, Rondé Stevenson, and my 5th is Deshaun Watson. He's going for about, in preseason, 50% completion rate.
You should have said Aaron Rodgers.
He looked actually pretty decent.
You think he'll do good in fantasy with that young team?
Yeah, because he has Garrett Wilson too, and
he doesn't turn the ball over very much either, too.
That's the thing, though. He's always going to protect the ball. He's got Garrett Wilson. That line is still new. Give that a couple of weeks, and Aaron Wilson's going to look like a god the way that he used to. Obviously, he's not going to be my number one or number two or anything like that. But yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers is not a vet. But just finishing off on Watson. So he already had 2 fumbles. He's lost one. He's only had a TD. And last year he had 58% completion rate, 183 yards per game, 7 TDs, and 5 interceptions. And he was sacked 3 times per game. So he's not evading pressure. So, and that's last year. He's looked bad in camp. He's looked bad in preseason. I see him having a horrible year. And I know this is funny to say. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think fans are actually going to say, when are you going to put DTR in? I see that being a huge thing on Twitter because Watson's going to have so many bad games that fans are going to be clamoring for DTR.
Okay. All right.
Man.
Well, since Josh, you kind of came on, I'll let you get your thoughts of your top 5. So I'll give mine. Number 1 for me is Derrick Henry. The dude's carries just keep going up. Ever since that foot injury 2 years ago, he's fumbled the ball a lot. BT, I think you had the numbers not that long ago. What was it, like 9 fumbles last year, right?
Oh, yeah. I think it was actually 6 fumbles.
6. Okay, so I mean that's still high, right?
Yeah.
6 fumbles, and again, offensive line. Yeah, the interior offensive line looks good, but if they beat the tackles, it's hard for him to, because a lot of his runs are out to the out, stretch plays, tosses. So it's hard for him to get that breakout yardage if the tackles can't get there. So I think Derrick Henry's going to have when I say a bad year for Derrick Henry, I still think he breaks 1,000 yards. But he's going to take a lot more carries. His rush per carries is going to be really low. I think his yards per carry is going to be 3.4. If that, it's going to be tough. But it's the Titans, so they're going to keep running the ball until he just breaks a big one. Number 2, Darren Waller. Best ability is availability, and the dude just hasn't been available. And I don't think that scheme is going to fix him. So I like you say, I think it's going to be Hyatt. Hyatt's going to be the main point in Barkley. So I don't think Waller's going to have a huge year. So I got to go with him, number 2. Number 3, Aaron Jones, Green Bay Packers. You don't know what you got in Jordan Love. So what's your focus on defense? You know what you got in Aaron Jones. So you're going to stack the box and make him beat you. So I think he's going to have a down year for him. And then number 4, of course, OBJ. Look, Deshaun Watson, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, they all have the same in common. They have a rough year when you miss a whole year of football. He's just coming back. He's not a spring chicken anymore. So I don't see him having a great year, especially with Zay Flowers on the other side. So I'm going to keep number 5. I'm going to kind of like you, VT, go quarterback. And the guy who had a horrible last year, I think is going to get even worse. And that's Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson falls off, and I think he gets benched by week 6. So I do not.
For Drew Lock?
Yeah, anybody but him. I just don't see it. So stay away from Russell Wilson. That's my top 5 of bets that are going to have a downfall. Josh, kick it to me. What you got?
Man, since I'm on the fly with it, are we going by this position or just in general?
No,
in general.
Yeah.
I still stand by Aaron Rodgers because he's on the older side, and we know what happens when a veteran quarterback goes to the Jets. We've seen it before, and Brett Favre. I just don't have faith in Aaron Rodgers to go over there and turn the team around. I know they have lofty expectations over there at the Jets with all the moves they made for Aaron Rodgers, but I think he falls off. Not tremendously, but just falls off. And I'm gonna add Russell Wilson in there as well because I think his weapons are getting hurt. I think is Sutton still hurt, or is he recovering from injury? I know Jerry Jeudy got hurt.
I think Sutton's still hurt, if I'm right.
Yeah, so Jerry Jeudy to the mix as well. So He's down 2 receivers already.
Started something exactly like last year.
Yeah, just like last year. So, as a receiver that you guys didn't probably mention, I know you mentioned OBJ, but it's a veteran receiver that I wouldn't pick. And it would be Devontae Adams. I don't think he'd do good. I think with Jimmy G, we know what we're seeing. I don't know who to back up behind Jimmy G, but I doubt that Jimmy G goes over there and have a Derek Carr type season to help Devontae in the fantasy. I doubt that happens. Running back, it's pretty tough. I would say JT. I mean, I wouldn't say veteran though. He's still kind of young. But I don't. Well, other veterans.
I mean, he's
Well,
been there.
definition, anyone that's not a rookie is a vet. Like for this conversation, at least that's the way I took it.
Right.
I'll take with yeah. I'll have to include JT because you don't know if he's going to hold out. You don't know if he's going to be the same guy he once was in 2021. So I definitely got to add him to that mix. That's 3. Yeah. Darren Waller, because we talked about this last week. Darren Waller as well. I think he's taking some steps back for the past couple of years. You should stay away from him as far as picking him in any of your rounds of fantasy. And last but not least, another receiver. I think it should be all on. I think I had OBJ, right?
Yeah.
That should be it. Yeah.
All right. I mean, that's all 3 of them. That's pretty simple, right? I mean, that's not a bad list of all, right? Just stay away from those guys. So, hey, can knock it. Josh, real quick before we end it, why don't you tell us your top 5 rookies that you think would you should watch out for in fantasy?
Oh man, I like the kid in Seattle, man. His name Jigma. What's his name?
JSN.
Yeah, I like him. I think
Jackson Smith.
Yeah, I like him. You got to go with that running back in Atlanta. And Robinson.
Can I just add something about JSN real quick? Because I had him on another list, which is questionable. And all I want to say is that he's out for the first 4 weeks.
Ooh, well,
he just had wrist surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And so it looks like he's out for 4 weeks. They think that he could come back week 5.
Mm-hmm.
If he comes back and you want to add him, I think it's cool. But everyone's got to know you're not going to have him for the first month of football. So he can't be your primary or your second receiver, unfortunately. And the other thing is he actually stuck with the injury bug because he missed 10 games in college? And
he was hurt. Yeah.
So he missed 10 games on the season opener last year, and now he's going to miss 4 games in the beginning of the season this year. So I don't know if you want to in Dynasty too, right? Like that could be a concern that you may be drafting an injury-prone receiver. So I say some caution with JSN.
Well, I mean, it all depends on your commissioner too. Like if they allow the IR, I mean, that'd be perfect, right? Pick him up, put him in IR, and you have a free roster spot. So I mean, there's some way where you can, it's chess, not checkers. But yeah, I agree with you, B. Go ahead, Josh. What's your other ones? You said Bijan and JSM. Who's your third?
I say Bryce Young. I think they're gonna have a nice offense over there with the receivers they picked up. And I don't like Frank Reich, but I think that he does help Bryce Young along the way. Of course, Anthony Richardson, because he's going to do more than just pass the ball. He's going to also run with his legs. So him and one more. Oh, the kid with the Chargers, the receiver.
Quentin Johnston?
Yes, he's going to be a beast.
Okay.
Because Keenan Allen is done. He's washed up. I should have added him to the list.
Add him to the
Yeah. Every time you think he's done, he just pulls off a surprise year. Like he's one of those guys. Like it's a hit, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. When you think he's done, he just pulls an A guy of his ass and has a good year.
The thing is, that he's probably going to be hurt for at least 2-3 games, but then he's going to have those insane games that are just impossible to reproduce by anyone else, right? Like, so like that's a problem with Keenan Allen because you could be out for 7 games. I mean, like you have no
Was
idea. So it's
he's great. He's always up there in catches. So if
Yeah.
you're in a PPR league, I mean, it's hard not to have him in your lineup because he's going to get you at least 10 points in catches. So
Right.
yeah.
Can I add something to your Bryce Young thing? So this is a thing that I thought was really interesting because I actually agreed that Bryce Young should be up there. He was not on my top 5 rookies, but I can understand why you put him there. One thing I saw is that I had some questions because that Carolina line wasn't great, but he's avoiding pressure really well.
Mhm.
And I think in that last game, I thought I would have done, but I didn't in my notes. I think he had 20 yards on the ground just in the – he did not obviously play a full game. He played, like 2 series or something, and he had 20 yards on the ground. So, I mean, I know that he's not categorized as a scrambler. He's not really – I think he had, 300 yards or something? Like, not even that, right?
It wasn't a lot. Him and CJ are not your threat to run the ball.
Right. CJ only had 100 yards, and I think that Bryce Young had less than 300, right? I think it was like 250, right around there. So he's not like a huge running threat, but I think that he might have to run a bit more with the line that they have right now. So I think that I'm not saying he's a dual threat, but I think from a fantasy perspective that you will see him run some TDs and get some extra yards through the run because he's not just running 2-3 yards. I mean, he's having some big runs. And I think that, they say this on Madden. I wonder, indulge me. Do you remember on Madden when you were playing and they talk about having a small running back? And it's like, sometimes that small running back can just get sneak in.
Low gravity, right, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of like what Bryce Young is going to do, right? Like he can just sneak in and get those extra yards. So not just a 3-4 yards, but they can turn into 10 or 15. And so I think he could be a decent fantasy pickup because of his legs as well.
My only concern, I think it was his first game. He got hit pretty good, and I was like, ooh, man, is he getting back up? Like his frame scares me.
He got hit in this game too. He got hit in this game. I mean,
I think he's got hit in every game. That I was like, God damn, are you gonna be okay? Like, get up. It's like a little boy playing in a grown man game, and we'll end shortly. But another rookie I've still put on there, Deuce Vaughn. Talk about small guys. He's having a great. He's having a great preseason, and Pollard is still nursing that injury. So who knows, man? He might be able to make some flashes. But yeah, I like me some Deuce Vaughn. I wish the Texans would have picked him up. But all right, guys, great episode, man, as always. So let's kick us off to end the show. BT, I'll start with you. Tell us where we can find you on social media.
Uh-oh.
Well, he's frozen, so let's kick it off with Josh Senior.
You can find me on Twitter at official Josh Senior, and Tuesdays at the Hushel Mile podcast. Tuesdays also the cut day, so and also the day where we have to decide on JT.
Okay. So BT, we know you're kind of pro, so I'll kick it off to you again. Let's see if this works. So that's where we can find you on social media, or not.
Again,
right. Guys, you can find me at A1 Day One Texans, and on Monday nights I usually fill in for the Texans for the AFC South Fan Battle podcast, and Wednesday nights you can find me and BT both on the Texans Fan Battle podcast. I got a couple articles coming up on our website, the Fan Battle Sports, and Josh just wrote one today about JT, so really check that out. I'm going to talk to BT about maybe having a fantasy article, so be on the lookout for that. BT, third time's the charm.
Sorry about that, guys. My internet just doesn't want to play today.
Tell us where we can find you.
So yeah, you can find me on social media, Brown Chubby Bear, on Twitter. Yes, I'm always going to call it Twitter. It's never going to be X, and as well as Threads. So I usually talk about Texans football, but I love talking about fantasy as well.
All right. Well, guys, again, great episode. So drafts are coming up. Have a good draft. Stay vigilant. Until next week, we'll see y'all. Have a good weekend.